Tired of fun and learning? Get ready to blast off on Kids Arena with Auntie Pearl and crew on Radio Afinju every Saturday at 10 to 11 a.m. Listen to stories that will tickle your bones, games that will blow your mind, and music that will make you dance like no one's watching. There's also lots of surprises and gifts to be won. So gather your friends, turn up the volume, let's have fun and make awesome memories together on Kids Arena with Auntie Pearl and crew. Only on Radio Afinju. Yeah! Life no get duplicate.
Na so ẹ̀mí ò láàárọ̀ o.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni.
Tẹ́ jẹ́jẹ́ o.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni o. Make you take am easy.
Na so.
Radio Afinju says if you drink, don't drive. If you drive, don't drink.
Tẹ́ jẹ́jẹ́ o.
Make you take am easy.
Na so.
This awareness is brought to you by Radio Afinju. When heavy rain begin fall and plenty water full everywhere, dey alert my people, shine your eyes as e dey happen for other places e fit reach your side.
Má ṣe da ìdọ̀tí sójú àgbàrá, gbé ilẹ̀ rẹ fún àwọn ọkọ̀ akólẹ̀.
No go put yourself for danger dey waka for flooded roads.
Gbọ́ o, ǹjẹ́ tó bá rí ẹnikẹ́ni tó hùwà tó lòdì sí òfin àmójútó ìdọ̀tí àti ẹ̀gbin, ẹ fi tó àwọn aláṣẹ létí. Report to the nearest authorities.
Má ṣe da ìdọ̀tí sójú àgbàrá.
Ìlera lọ́rọ̀. This awareness is brought to you by Radio Afinju.
Má kọ̀yìn síbi ayé kọjú sí ọ̀rẹ́ wa. Rédíò Àfinjú láyé ń tẹ̀lé báyìí.
Wherever you're listening or watching Radio Afinju, the time is 3 p.m.
First, a look at the highlights. Tinubu tells UN to prioritize debt forgiveness. Hundreds die from cholera as war rages in Sudan. Storm Helen strengthens as it heads to Mexico and Florida. A very good afternoon and welcome to the World News on Radio Afinju. My name is Stella. Aderanti, the news in detail. President Bola Tinubu has asked the United Nations to prioritize debt forgiveness from creditors and multilateral financial institutions for Nigeria and other developing countries. Tinubu, who is the chairman of the Authority of Heads of States and Government of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, made the call while addressing world leaders during the general debate of the ongoing 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly at the UN headquarters in New York, United States. Represented by his deputy, Vice President Kashim Shettima, at the high-level annual global event, the president asked for debt relief to enable developing countries to focus on developmental projects for their citizens. He called on world leaders to recommit themselves to multilateralism by deepening relations among member states of the UN in line with the principles of inclusivity, equality, and cooperation. This, he said, is the surest guarantee of global action against existential challenges faced by the international community. President Tinubu decried the steep descent to singularity and nationalism, which, according to him, are undermining the quest for peaceful and collective resolution of global challenges such as terrorism, climate change, poverty, food crisis, hyperinflation, nuclear proliferation, and grinding debt burden, among others. The Nigerian leader reminded the world leaders that the United Nations stands for multilateralism, which represents inclusiveness anchored on the tripod of peace, sustainable development, and human rights. Justice Emeka Nwite of the Federal High Court, Abuja, has adjourned the alleged money laundering case filed by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, against the immediate past governor of Kogi State, Yaya Bello, until October 30th, 2024. The adjournment came as Bello moved to the Supreme Court to file an appeal seeking to set aside the arrest that his administration has invested massively in other areas of the economy. The Oyo state government has announced the clearing of over 153.11 kilometers of blocked drainages and culverts across major roads in Ibadan as part of efforts to prevent flood disasters during the rainy season. The Commissioner for Environment and Natural Resources, Abdulmajid Mogbonjubola, disclosed this in a statement made available to newsmen by the Commissioner for Information and Orientation, Dotun Uyelade, represented by the Director of the Ministry's Engineering Department, Oladipo Adebowale. The Commissioner noted that the proactive step was essential in preventing avoidable flooding incidents in the state. During an on-the-spot assessment tour involving officials from the Ministry, the State Project Performance Monitoring Agency, and the Office of the Auditor General, Mogbonjubola praised the government's foresight in prioritizing the desilting of drainages. Among the major drainages cleared were those along Total Garden to Bere, Yagoko to Odono, Akpata, Total Jericho to Aleshinloye Roundabout, Sango Eleyele to Ologweru, Ijokodo, Akpete, and several others. The Academic Staff Union of Universities has given the federal government a 14-day ultimatum to resolve several lingering issues. ASU is seeking the conclusion of the renegotiation of the 2009 federal government ASU agreement based on the NIMI BRICS Committee's draft agreement of 2021, as well as the release of withheld salaries due to the 2022 strike action. ASU President Emmanuel Oshodeke, in a statement, expressed frustration with the government's lack of commitment and delay tactics, stating that these actions are fueling a crisis in the public university system. Apart from the implementation of a 2021 agreement, ASU is also demanding the release of unpaid salaries for staff on sabbatical, part-time, and adjunct appointments affected by the integrated payroll and personal information system, and the payment of outstanding third-party deductions such as check-off dues and cooperative contributions. The union is also seeking funding for the revitalization of public universities, partly captured in the 2023 federal government budget, and the payment of earned academic allowances, partly captured in the 2023 federal government budget. Away from Nigeria, more than 430 people have died from cholera in the past month as civil war continues to ravage Sudan. Sudan's health ministry added that the number of infections has risen to about 14,000 and was doing all it can to combat cholera in the affected states amid the rise in infections. According to the U.S. Special Envoy to Sudan, Tom Perriello, getting treatment to those affected areas was hugely complicated by the conflict, which has killed up to 150,000 people since it began last year. Health Minister Haitham Mohamed Ibrahim declared a cholera outbreak in mid-August, as well as the war. Heavy rainfall and floods have also contributed to the cholera outbreak, compounded by crowding in displacement camps. In other parts of Africa, some 1,685 seriously ill inmates have been released from one of the most notorious prisons in the Democratic Republic of Congo in the latest move to tackle overcrowding. Reports say the release began at Makala Prison in the capital, Kinshasa. Officials said it was there at the beginning of this month that 129 prisoners died in an attempted jailbreak. Some were shot dead by security forces, while others were killed in a crush. Some of the inmates identified for release can be seen in a series of images published on the Justice Ministry's Facebook page. In Asia, China has said it successfully launched an intercontinental ballistic missile carrying a dummy warhead into the Pacific Ocean. Beijing's defense ministry said the ICBM was launched and fell into expected sea areas, adding that the test launch was routine and part of its annual training. The type of missile and its flight path remained unclear, but Chinese state media said Beijing had informed the countries concerned in advance. Japan later said that it received no notice of a test launch. China's nuclear weapon tests usually take place domestically, and it previously test-fired ICBMs west into the Taklamakan Desert in the Xinjiang region. This is believed to be the first time since 1980 that it launched an ICBM into international waters. The Japanese government said that China had given it no prior notice of the ICBM launch. Thailand's king has signed a marriage equality bill into law, making the country the first in Southeast Asia to recognize same-sex unions. The bill cleared by the Senate in June, but requires royal endorsement to become law. It was published in the Royal Gazette, and it will come into effect on 22nd of January next year. Activists hailed the move as historic. It marks the culmination of years of campaigning for marriage equality. Thailand has long been seen as a relative haven for the LGBTQ+ community in a region where such attitudes are rare. The new law uses gender-neutral terms in place of husbands, wives, men, and women, and it grants same-sex couples adoption and inheritance rights. In the United Kingdom, the Prime Minister has told British nationals in Lebanon to leave immediately after fighting intensified between Israel and Hezbollah, the Iran-backed armed group which dominates the country. Keir Starmer said they are ramping up the contingency plans and warned that they are potentially at the brink of all-out war. The Ministry of Defense is sending 700 troops to nearby Cyprus to prepare for the possible evacuation of British nationals from Lebanon, and the government continues to advise against all travel to Lebanon. Lebanon's health minister had told reporters what is happening in his country is carnage as hospitals struggle to cope with the number of casualties from 2 days of widespread Israeli airstrikes targeting Hezbollah. The handling of the Afghan evacuation, where 15,000 people were airlifted out of the country, was widely criticized as mismanaged and chaotic. Senior government sources disclosed that an estimated 10,000 UK citizens are currently in Lebanon. A former police officer has been handed more than £1 million in compensation after it was ruled she had been discriminated against. Katrina Hibbert was a safeguarding sergeant with Thames Valley Police, working with victims of child sexual and drug exploitation in Cherwell and West Oxfordshire. She had started a party and events business as a positive outlet to help her cope with the stress of her job, a tribunal heard, but she resigned from the force after it withdrew permission for her to run the business while she was off sick, which George found to be discrimination arising from her disability. An occupational health nurse had suggested taking up a hobby could improve Hybert's mental well-being, the tribunal was told. And from the Americas, Tropical Storm Helene is strengthening in the Caribbean as it heads towards Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. Meteorologists warn Helene could turn into a Category 3 hurricane before hitting the U.S. Gulf Coast in the coming days. The U.S.-based National Hurricane Center said that Helene was expected to pass the northeastern coast of Yucatan in the coming hours and hit Florida late on Thursday. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has declared a state of emergency for almost all the state's counties. Helene had maximum sustained winds of 105 kilometers per hour and was moving northwest from its position east of the Mexican state of Quintana Roo. Red flags warning swimmers not to venture into the sea were flying on the beaches of Cancun as early as Tuesday, and fishermen rushed to get their small boats out of the water. U.S. prosecutors have charged a man arrested near Donald Trump's Florida golf course with the attempted assassination of a presidential candidate. It comes a day after a court filing showed Ryan Roth had written a note months ago saying he intended to kill Trump. Roth, 58 years, already faces up to 20 years behind bars on 2 gun-related charges, but he faces a maximum sentence of life in prison if convicted on the new, more serious charge. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, in a statement, vowed to use every available tool to hold Roth accountable. Trump had accused the government of mishandling the case, writing in a social media post that the Justice Department should let Florida handle the case. But Garland rebuffed that, telling reporters that his agency will seek to cooperate and get assistance from consistent with the law. In the Middle East, Lebanon's health minister has said what is happening in his country is carnage as hospitals struggle to cope with the number of casualties from 2 days of widespread Israeli airstrikes targeting the armed group Hezbollah. Firas Abid told reporters it was clear that many of the 550 people killed in Monday's attacks were civilians, including children and women. Israel said it hit hundreds of Hezbollah sites, accusing the group of hiding weapons in residential areas. The Israeli military had killed the head of Hezbollah's rocket forces as the strikes continued, while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the group was leading Lebanon to the edge of the abyss. Hezbollah responded by firing more than 300 rockets into northern Israel, injuring 6 people. Although neither side seemed interested in backing down, the U.S. President Joe Biden told the UN General Assembly that a full-scale conflict was not in anyone's interest and insisted that a diplomatic solution is still possible. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned that the world cannot afford Lebanon to become another Gaza. Now,